I once got locked in the bomb shelter in the basement. Our school was old, built in the 1920s, had an old fallout shelter in the basement, complete with heavily locked doors, the type with the wheel in the middle to operate. We stored old things in it, as such a facility is widely unnecessary in the middle of nowhere. Old desks, old chairs, you name it. Anyway, I was down there once sorting through chairs, looking for one that we could use in theater, when the door closed. To this day, I don't know why the door closed. It was loud enough that I dropped my flashlight and was plunged into total darkness. I can't tell you how scary that was. I felt around for the flashlight but couldn't find it. I had to feel my way across the room to the stairs, all the while running into things and tripping on things, until I found them. I crawled up the stairs, wrought iron with a bad railing, to the top and felt for the door. I found the wheel and opened the thing. Blinded by the light outside, the whole ordeal took about an hour. It was no small room with no storage or obstacles, and absolutely no light at all. I think I may have lost it a little bit, because the dark bothered me for about a year after that. I kept having panic attacks, thinking that something was breathing right behind me, only to realize that it was my own ragged breath. Totally gnarly, and a moment I hope I never have to live again. Alright, this was from secondary, but my school hosted both secondary and high school, so I guess it counts. I'm in Singapore. My school moved to a temporary campus for 3 years due to renovation. The neighborhood where I was located used to be a cemetery, which was demolished and then built over. They tried to retrieve as many coffins as possible, but they didn't retrieve them all. This is a fact, which means there were literally dead bodies below where we were studying. The holding campus used to belong to a vocational school. Back in Japanese occupation time, it was a communal shelter since there was a large bomb shelter there. In my period, it was converted into a band room, and there were tons of scary stories behind it. People reported hearing drums being knocked after lockdown. It wasn't just rats knocking, it was the small drums being tapped on. Some report seeing the security guard locking the door only to find it open a few minutes later. There is actually a rule enforced in school that no one is supposed to be in the band room after dark. The security guard at 6 will force everyone to drop whatever they're doing and leave the room at once. They cite it for security reasons, but I once had a genuine talk with the principal, and he admitted it was due to the ghost stories. Mind you, this man is a hardcore devout Christian, but apparently the ghost stories were way too common and confirmed by many people. He went ahead and took precautions. One of my classmates was what most people would call at the time retarded. He was probably mildly autistic or had severe reading disabilities that were never diagnosed. He kept up mostly through tutoring and mercy of the teachers, and while he wasn't dumb, his reading comprehension was very low. I watched as my 5th grade teacher, who has a long history of being abusive, although I didn't really understand it at the time, literally destroyed his desire to learn at all, and watched this kid slowly sink into a belief that he wasn't worth anything. He never recovered from it, even now in his mid-30s. She also tried to beat down anyone who tried to be his friend, myself and other couple of students, and it was only the work of the next couple of years' teachers and our parents that we survived. She was my first experience with the destructive power of a person in authority, if they chose to use it, and I've gone out of my way to help kids in abusive situations with their self-esteem ever since. I have a college friend who got bullied in high school. The school couldn't do much about it since it was happening outside of school property or something. Although he made it clear the school did a little as they could on purpose. Principals didn't like him for standing up to the bullies on occasion. I can't recall the full story, but he challenged the group of boys being bullies to fight in somewhere near the field in his house after school. He ran home, dropped off his backpack, and said hello to somebody in the house, and then ran back to the corner of the field to meet the kids. Thing is, he booby-trapped many parts of the field and lured them in there. I think the police ended up being called, but there wasn't anything they could do. Apparently, the field was owned by his family, which he was protecting. The bullies were also the school's responsibility, supposedly, since they hadn't returned home from school yet. But the school couldn't punish my friend, since he had been acknowledged by a family member at their home. So in essence, he got back at both the school and the bullies. The sheriff told my friend he wouldn't get away with it a second time. I had a bully teacher slash coach in high school, always screaming about things. He never seemed to like me, even though I tried my hardest in sports. I did get great grades and was in my first year of college. I had to stop by high school to pick up my transcripts. Walked by his classroom on my way to the office. He stops lecturing to class and comes out of the hallway to berate me for wearing a hat in the school. I took my hat off, adjusted the bill, looked him in the eye, put it back on, and walked away. He followed me to the office, grumbling about how I had a lesson to learn, and he was going to show me. Principal comes out of his office to see what all the yelling was about. I still haven't said a word. He starts retelling the story to the principal. I turned step to the secondary and asked for my transcript. Remind her I called earlier. She hands it over. I turn to the principal and ask him if all the guests in the school were treated like this. I think he forgot I wasn't a student anymore. I always wish I would have told him off and created a big scene, but I just left. Grade 4. I bring my binder up to the teacher's desk to show her my homework. Can't remember what it was. She looks at it for a few seconds and suddenly picks the binder up and heaves it across the classroom without a word. It lands with a thud and cracks as it tears, and the rings pop out all of alignment. I was stunned. All I could do was go pick up my binder and sit down again. Told my parents that night when they asked, "How was your day at school?" And they had the school put me in another class for the year. In the grand scheme of things, that's not too terrible. Plus bonus, this teacher was a big fan of country music and made all the kids practice square/line dancing throughout the year for an end-of-year concert. When in form, that shit's embarrassing, so at least I got out of doing that. Grade 6. Our class is doing a play. We're rehearsing all year and have several showings. One on particular showing, my character is supposed to come out of hiding and steal his magical lamp that was resting on a bench. When I'm about to do that, I realize the lamp is not where it's supposed to be. I panic and say in a very loud and clear voice, "Where is the fucking lamp?" In that moment, you could feel the air being sucked in by the stunned audience. My parents were in the audience. Someone hands me the lamp and we continue as normal. Afterwards, my teacher took me around to every class to give a public apology to the students. I don't feel aggrieved or insulted that I had to do this because it was the right thing to do, but God, was it mortifying. I still think about it once every couple months or so, to this day. On Frog Dissection Day, I was partnered with this really nerdy cute girl. This is an important detail, because it provides some semblance of an excuse for just how stupid I was. As we're cutting up this little frog bro, she looks at me and says, "Dare you to eat the leg?" She could have dared me to swallow the frog whole, and I probably would have obliged. So, down goes the leg. Unfortunately, it doesn't go down all the way. The web foot gets stuck in my mouth, and the dangling leg is a bit down my throat. I, of course, start gagging. The teacher runs over, kids are squealing, and everyone's watching as I reach in my mouth and pull out this sad little frog leg. The girl is in shock, the teacher is in shock, I'm in shock. The only person who can make a comment is this quiet mousy kid who sums it up with a, "Ew." So, yeah, dissection. It's pretty good times. We had this small group of kids who'd show up an hour before school started. Mostly because our parents worked early, we all became pretty close, given the circumstances. One day, two kids were fucking around going down the slide, and the bigger kid fell on the other titled hand. I just remember a shriek. Then this 9-year-old boy held up his arm, dripping with blood and protruding bone from his wrist. It was a strange and horrifying thing to see, extremely painful on a familiar face when you're young and impressionable. Back in the day, before classes began for the day, elementary age kids were allowed to play outside on the playground. There I was, playing the big mass soccer game. When I legitimately stole the soccer ball from the older kid, he got mad at this, he tackled me, and started pummeling my face. My face became a bloody mess, and I was in a daze. When my mother was called in, she spoke to the vice principal about what would be done with the other boy. His response was, "Boys will be boys." Nothing was done. That was the tipping point for my parents sending me to a private school. that in the Florida school system was one of the worst in the country. So my school had this automated phone system that was used mainly for bad weather. I live in the south, so tornadoes often occur, so it was a pretty effective system. This same system was used to inform parents that their child was failing a class/school in general. My principal accidentally sent the message to every kid's parent in the entire school system. I was raised by my grandma and grew up with very good grades. And when I walked into my house after school, the first thing she said was, "Wanna fucking tell me something?" I started crying instantly, still pretty young, and confused that it was me that broke the headlight of her car, and not my friend who lived next door. Thanks, public school. Well, not in the actual school, but related. We had a bus stop close to my house. When it rained, we would all take shelter under an overhang by my house. There was this bully kid in my neighborhood who turned up occasionally. I don't think he ever really did anything, just tried to intimidate kids. Anyway, one day he decided he wanted all of us to hide by my house and miss the bus. I had the nerd dilemma where I wanted to go to school, but didn't want to mess with the bully. Finally, I said fuck it and started walking to the bus stop. The bully guy started shouting a bunch of threats at me, so I lost my nerve, turned around, and went into my house. Ended up calling my mom to take me to school. Okay guys, that was 10 truly horrifying stories from Reddit. If you can do me a favor and smash that motherfucking like and subscribe button, that'd be pretty dank. Alright, take it easy. Bye.